Welcome to Undrafted Hockey Fan. I'm Brad. Today we're talking about the Seth Jones trade, which I honestly didn't think was going to happen until the summer, but he showed, if you didn't see the interview, he showed so much disdain towards the Chicago Blackhawks. Rightfully so. They are terrible this year. And so I understand why he wanted to move off there. He's getting older. He's 30 years old. I know he's ancient, right? But the thing is he's been with the Blackhawks for a long time. And so he wanted to move on from the organization because they're still in the middle of a rebuild and they're probably not going to be good for another 2-3 years, even competing for a playoff spot. And even with Connor Bedard, it doesn't just magically make the team better. It helps for sure, but you need more and more pieces to develop and continue to get better and bring in pieces. I know they bought a ton this summer. It has not worked out the way that they thought it would, but it is a little bit of help. And now moving off Seth Jones and getting the assets back is huge for them. So I want to break down this trade real quick. We have Seth Jones going to the Florida Panthers, and the Chicago Blackhawks are retaining $2.5 million per year for this year and the next 5 years. Just to give you an idea. So that is $12.5 million over 5 years. That is $12.5 million over the next 5 years that they're cumulatively taking on. So $2.5 million every year. So at $7 million, Seth Jones is absolutely probably that's more closer to his value because he's played a ton of time on the Chicago Blackhawks. Now I want to break this down. They're also getting a 4th round draft pick. And I'm gonna make a joke about that a little bit later. But in exchange for what are the Chicago Blackhawks acquiring? They're going with Spencer Knight and a 1st round pick in 2026. The conditions are that it slides to 2027 if Florida doesn't have their 2026 pick. So that's if they decide to go this year and trade the 2026 pick to someone else because someone else wants that pick more in particular, then they would just slide to 2027 pick. So let's break down the Florida aspect of this, right? Because they're getting, in my opinion, the best player here, right? Now Spencer Knight might end up being the better goalie and the goalie of the future. It really is the goalie of the future for the Chicago Blackhawks. But in this case, Seth Jones is absolutely the best player in this transaction. So far this year, he's got 27 points in 42 games. Mind you, Blackhawks aren't that good this year, right? So it's not that, it's not that unheard of, like of a guy playing this not poorly, I guess it's not the right word, but we know that Seth Jones can absolutely get you a haul, right? So when you look at where he was when he was actually traded, he was traded back in 2021, 2022, or 2021 from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Chicago Blackhawks. And I want to talk about Seth Jones. This is his 4th team, by the way. He was originally drafted by the Nashville Predators, traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and traded from the Columbus Blue Jackets for that massive haul back to the Chicago Blackhawks. And they got a huge haul. It was like Cole Sillinger. There's multiple 1st round picks. It was a really big deal. So, but again, Chicago ended up working out really well for him. In his first year of Chicago, he had 51 points in 76 games. It's pretty good for a defenseman, right? You like defensemen that are 50, 60 points. And mind you, in that first year, he's doing 26 minutes a night, 26 minutes and 12 seconds a night playing the game. I mean, this is a significant guy's been up significant time on the ice. And if we're looking at what he's doing this year, in 42 games, he's got 27 points. So we're doing 27 divided by 42. Let's see what his pace is. His pace would be 52 points, which is very similar to what he did in the first year of Chicago. And Chicago is even worse this time, right? In 2022, you had a Kane there, right? Taves, I think he was still dealing with long-term COVID issues, but you had players there that were really good that year. So he's having a good year. Minus 18. Again, Chicago's bad. It's not a big deal. So, but you look at who is Florida getting in Seth Jones? Mind you, this guy, and I looked up some of the stats, and which is honestly just crazy. He's averaging in his career 23 minutes and 42 seconds a night. That is a number 1, number 2 defenseman right there. And with the massive contract that he had with Chicago, of course he was going to be, tasked with that number 1 defenseman role. Now at 30 years old, he's might not fulfilling that role at this point anymore. So you got to look at who he's being traded to, right? He's being traded to the Florida Panthers, who have a phenomenal backside. And I mean that in the very funny, very, very, very funny way. So they have, if you look at their backside, they're the defensemen. You're looking at like on the right side, you have an Aaron Ekblad and a Gustav Forsling. Now, mind you, I don't think you're going to knock off Gustav Forsling in that case, but you get more. Seth Jones is probably going to end up going on the right side. He's a right-handed defenseman first off, and he's also probably going to get on the right side for the second pair. So you now move Kulikov down, and then so you have Kulikov, Nate Schmidt on the bottom pair. Then you have Seth Jones and Nico Mikola on the second pair. So with that, you're getting a guy that is, again, $7 million, 30 years old. Mind you, and actually he's just under 30 years old, just like 29.4. Anyways, he's 29 and a half years old. And then one of the reasons you get a guy like him is a little bit of insurance, right? So you got to think about who is also on the block for the Florida Panthers. The Seth Jones is, you have Aaron Ekblad, who is a pending UFA this year. He is 29 years old, and he does not have a contract with the Florida Panthers yet. Aaron Ekblad is making $7.5 million. And so if the Florida Panthers decide, hey, we don't want to keep you because we don't want to pay you because he's making $7.5 million right here, right now, he'll probably want $9 million as a defenseman, probably for a long-term contract, right? 5, 6, 7 years. And if he's with Florida and wants that 8th year, if he's not willing to settle at the number that the Florida Panthers want to keep him at, then they'll move on from him. They did this with Montour. They let plenty of guys go. There's guys they want to retain. They might let Sam Bennett go. They did retain Reinhart, right? Think about this last year. They had to choose between Montour and Reinhart, and they decided to keep Reinhart. Okay, Montour now making the $7 million over 7 years over in Seattle. Good for him. He got his payday. Now Aaron Ekblad's probably former first overall pick as well. Will probably want to stay with the team, but again, he also wants to make his bag, right? Because he's in this position. He's a first overall draft pick. He may be doing the John Tavares thing where he decides, hey, I want to go to a team that maybe values me a little bit more. And not that Aaron Ekblad is having a bad year, 30 points in 53 games. But Seth Jones doing that or doing close to that, 27 and 42. So in less games with less production or with a worse team. And so you have to think about when you look at Aaron Ekblad, you're like, is this the guy, right? And if he decides to walk, let's say he does, right? Or maybe they flip him, which would be crazy. I don't even know if he has any protection. But let's say they decide to move Aaron Ekblad, which again, Florida Panthers aren't going to do that. They're rather just keep him. I don't even know if they can move him. He has a modified no trade list. He's a 10-team no trade, 10-team or 12-team no trade clause. So he pretty much moved. I think it's like all the New York or Buffalo, the Islanders, which is like New York, California, and Canada. Basically, it's the 12 teams, right? But in this case, if they don't decide they don't want to extend Aaron Ekblad, they can move on from him because now they have another guy that can take that top right D spot and for next year. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. I'm really excited. This is a good move for Florida. Again, making a big buy. Why are they going to keep these first round picks, right? They don't really need them because the guys they're going to draft in 26 or 27 aren't going to be here for a very long time. And so you move off these first round picks because they're a team like the Chicago Blackhawks who has the time, who are waiting for guys to develop and are able to get a guy, at the 20, let's say Florida Panthers go to the conference finals. That's going to be a 20, 27, 28, 26 spot in the first round draft, which is good. You're going to get maybe like a good third line, second line guy, but you're going to get a, generational guy, probably not, right? And in my opinion, I think Florida or Chicago ends up flipping that for a actual player they can use more in the here and now, but we'll see. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And this is consequential, by the way. One of the reasons that they can take on the Seth Jones contract is because today they put Matthew Tkachuk on LTIR with a groin injury. Mind you, he's day to day, but it says it's LTIR, right? So he has to be out for at least 28 days or 10 games. So again, they're probably going to try and pushing this as long as they can until the playoffs. And suddenly he's going to be probably not fully healthy, right? But he'll probably be healthy enough that he can come back, right? I know that USA tried to use him in the finals game against Canada. He ended up only playing like 7 minutes. So you can just see that it just did not work out for Tkachuk in that case. And so it's working out okay for the Florida Panthers, who are in a pretty good spot in the the Atlantic Division. I know that they're fighting with Toronto for that top spot, but they're only currently 1 point behind Toronto with 77 points, and Toronto has 78 points. Mind you, Toronto does have a game in hand, but Tampa Bay is absolutely catching up quick. They have been monsters. Let me pull up. I think they're in their last 10 games. Yeah, Tampa Bay Lightning are on an 8-game winning streak. Toronto's on a 5. Florida's on a 3, right? So you have these teams that are really good around you, right? And of course, Columbus and Detroit are coming up along within the backside, right? But I think Florida is pretty comfortably at that second spot. So, but again, you have to continue to bolster your lineup, and that's exactly what Florida is going to do. They were Stanley Cup contenders last year, meaning they were right going into the playoffs and everything, Stanley Cup contenders, and they No, they came in the eighth. They came in the eighth spot. I apologize, but they did. They fought their way through and they won the Stanley Cup. And if you won the Stanley Cup the year before, we can expect you're probably going to try and do it a second year in a row, right? Because a lot of the same guys, you're going to try and keep the same guys because it was a good team. Clearly, they were good enough to win the Stanley Cup. So of course they're going to continue to add. And so I think that they're not done either, by the way, because now that Florida is, you got to think about what else they moved in this deal. Who did they move? They moved out Spencer Knight, a 23-year-old former first-round pick, 13th overall in 2020. I want to say 2019. Yeah, 2019, top goalie in that draft, right? And this guy has definitely had some struggles. He's this year so far, he had some struggles last year, right? He was dealing with a lot of OCD and anxiety, went to the player assistance program. And so he clearly got a lot of stuff figured out, or how to better manage it. And this year so far, he's got 23 points in 23 games. He has a 2.4 goals against average and a 0.907 save percentage. That is above average for the save percentage, and a pretty decent goals against average as well in 23 games. So, and I'm going to stick with Florida. We'll go back to Spencer Knight in a minute. So who does Florida have to call up to take the spot of a Spencer Knight? They're calling up Chris Driedger, a goalie that he's a UFA. He's 30 years old, and he has not played a game this year in the NHL. He's only played in the AHL. And even in the AHL, if we look at his stats right now, he's played 20 games. He's got a terrible save percentage at 0.878 in almost a 3 goals against average. That's not good for the AHL, let alone the NHL, or that's not good enough in the NHL, let alone the AHL, right? So, and this is a guy that was playing with the Seattle Kraken he played a lot with Seattle Kraken, but ended up going down to the world, or ended up getting waived and going to the AHL. So Seattle has not had good goalie luck. They signed Chris Driedger, they signed Philip Grubauer, and they've had to waive those goalies and send them down to the AHL. Of course, Joey Daccord is working out for sure, but Chris Driedger is absolutely not the answer for these guys. So I anticipate them potentially getting a goalie just to help back it up. It's not going to be maybe expensive guy. They're not going to be going for like a John Gibson or anything, but they are going to try and, I imagine, go for a backup goalie, because you just never know, right? Because we saw this with last year with Stolarz, and we saw the year before with Alex Lyon. They need a good backup just to be able to take some of that pressure off of Bobrovsky. Bungie Bobrovsky this year so far has played 40 games, right? So he's 25, 13, and 2. So he's looking really good. And his numbers are actually worse than Spencer Knight. He's got a 904 save percentage. So he's actually doing worse, mind you. Bobrovsky's played twice the amount of games, and I'm sure it's harder competition and everything, but Spencer Knight was still putting up good numbers, right? So we need to consider what was the value being sent over to the Chicago Blackhawks. You're looking at a first-round pick and a former mid first-round pick, right? So basically 2 first-round picks for this guy. But this is why, because Florida's taking on that massive contract again. Is a $9.5 million contract, but there's Chicago is retaining $2.5 million. That's good. Like that's why you get the value back, and Chicago's able to hold all that back because they don't need that $2.5 million, because it's only going to get easier and easier to retain that kind of stuff, that kind of money. So I'm actually looking at Jay Fresh talks about how his over. If you look at, let me pull it up. He has, if you look at the cap space over the next couple of years, as it starts to increase for Seth Jones, right? He's making $7 million this year. The impact of next year is 6.5. It is inflation. If inflation equivalent under the 24-25 cap, we're going to see an estimated 5% increase every year. By the 2030, when Seth Jones is at the end of his contract and the last year of his contract, that $7 million for the Florida Panthers is going to be worth under $5 million, $4.9 million, right? Seth Jones at $4.9 million, $4.9 million is going to be absolutely worth it. So I totally see why Florida does this. I see why they retain him and everything. I think it's going to be a good move. And mind you, like if you're looking at some of the descriptions of what people are saying about Seth Jones, he's a minute munching defenseman who's strong on the puck and big and above average in almost every facet of the game. His Achilles heel the past 5 years has been his agility, which makes him vulnerable defending the rush. So, but again, he's a higher offensive ceiling, in my opinion, than Aaron Ekblad. So it's an absolute upgrade in that case, right? So we're going to take a quick break and we'll jump into the Chicago side. So stay tuned right after this quick ad read. It might not feel like it, but spring is right around the corner. You know how you can tell? Golfers are hitting the links, and we have some tournaments to talk about. And if you want to do more than just talk, put your money where your mouth is. Get in on all the tee to green action with DraftKings Sportsbook. From Thursday's opening round through the closing round Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with tournament props, live betting, odds boost, and so much more. And if you've never bet on golf before, it's easier than you think. Just pick up something simple like a golfer to win the tourney and make your pick. It's just that easy. Now we got some tournaments coming up. We got the Puerto Rico Open, the Players Championship, the Valspar Championship, the Texas Children's Houston Open. Maybe you can bet versus Stefan Jaeger to win. Maybe a little Scotty Scheffler or a little Bryce Garnett. Whatever it is, you can get in on the action. And here's something special for first timers. New to DraftKings customers, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit cpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boo Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. And moving on to the Chicago Blackhawks side of the Seth Jones trade, mind you, Florida acquires Seth Jones and a 4th-round draft pick for Spencer Knight and a 1st-round pick in either 26 or 27, depends on which pick Florida. If Florida ends up keeping the 2026 pick or not, and or they end up trading the 2026 pick, then the 2026 pick for Chicago goes to 2027. Either way, it's a 1st-round pick. So, talking about the Chicago side, by the way, this is very funny to me. It's hilarious. So Florida, for some reason, in these massive trades that they do, where they love their 4th-round picks, because we're looking at Seth Jones. So you acquire Seth Jones for Florida's. They send out Spencer Knight and a 1st-round pick. They get Seth Jones and a 4th-round pick. Okay, cool. Was that the make or break of this thing? Probably not, right? But then you look back at the Matthew Tkachuk deal, and I have it pulled up over here. Where are you at? Matthew Tkachuk. So, Florida Panthers send out prospect Cole Schwindt, Mackenzie Weegar, Jonathan Huberdeau, and a 1st-round pick. What do they get back? They get Matthew Tkachuk and, crazy enough, a 4th-round pick. Why? Because that must have been the deal breaker, is it this 4th-round pick? It's so stupid. It cracks me up. So, but again, they're here acquiring capital. So, I mean, it's working out just fine for them. So, again, going to the Spencer Knight side of this. So, we're looking at some of his NHL numbers. He's been playing in the league since 2020, 2021. And overall throughout his whole career, he's never dropped below a 9.01 save percentage. Now, if you look at a couple of years ago, that is not good. That is not bad. It's below average. But as shooting has gone up, as shooting percentage has gone up, and goal scoring has gone up in the NHL, he's currently sitting at a 907 save percentage this year. So you're looking at a guy who's absolutely been doing very well in the league. 23 games played, 2.4 goals against average. That's not bad at all, right? And again, he's only 23 years old, right? So you think with this guy, he's going to have plenty of time to hit into his prime. Goalies absolutely take a much longer time to develop. In my opinion, when he started in 2020, 2021 at like 20 years old, not ready, dude. He did play well, though, right? In the 4 games that he played, he had a 919 save percentage and a 3.2 goals against average. So he played well, right? And he still played well. I mean, his 2022-23 season, his goals against average was a lot higher at 318 goals against average in 21 games. Again, he probably bigger workload than he wanted to, or he needed at that point. But again, I think he's gonna develop into just a great goaltender. And if you look at what Chicago needs, Chicago definitely needs goaltenders. They have a 1st-round. You look at what a team needs, right? You need a franchise forward, right? Well, who do you got in there? Connor Bedard, right? You look at the defenseman. Who did they draft last year? Leshunov 2nd overall. In Michigan State, he struggled a little bit, but I think, defensemen, similar to goalies, take a lot longer because a defensive side is a lot harder to develop for high-end players. So, we see this with Connor Bedard. Great offense, not as great on defense, right? So Leshunov as being a defenseman, if he's gonna be a number 1 defenseman, it's going to take a little bit more time, right? And now they have a franchise goalie in Spencer Knight. So if you look at who the Chicago Blackhawks have been running in net currently this year, they have Mrazek. Where are you at? Mrazek, Peter Mrazek, who is 33 years old, definitely not your goalie of the future. They've also been rocking Arvid Soderblom for several years now. He's been kind of tandeming the goaltending. He's a RFA at the end of this year, so he needs a new contract next year. He'll probably he's actually probably a little bit older than Spencer Knight as well. Because Spencer Knight's just turning 23 and Arvid Soderblom's 24 and a half. And the numbers that you're putting up for Arvid Soderblom are 906 save percentage and 3 goals against average, right? So a similar save percentage to Spencer Knight. But again, Arvid Soderblom playing on a worse team. So you look at those guys. If you have a good tandem of Arvid Soderblom, who I think was like a 5th round draft pick. I mean, he went undrafted, which is even crazier. So he went undrafted, and the Chicago Blackhawks found him in the SHL, and so he put up really good numbers with Skellefteå, and then he got broken to the NHL, and he did the AHL 38 games that next year in 21-22, and then did a couple of games with the Chicago Blackhawks, and now is starting to take a solidified position in the in net. But again, this is a guy undrafted. He might work out. He might be Bobrovsky, who was undrafted, right? He might not be that guy though, and you want a guy that's maybe a little more I don't say not a guarantee, but a little bit more scouted. The guys have watched him a lot, right? He was worth using a 1st-round draft pick to pick him in 2019, 13th overall, right? And then also you gotta look at the depth that they have, the Chicago Blackhawks, for their goaltending. In 2020, they picked up 2nd round. They used a mid-2nd round pick to pick Drew Commesso, and he's currently playing the AHL, mostly 25 games this season. He's 899 save percentage and a 287 goals against average. Mind you, AHL is a lot harder for younger goaltenders. He was just drafted in 2020, so he's 22 years old. And AHL is not the same as the NHL. He does have 2 games this year with the Chicago Blackhawks, and he did not do well. 3.36 goals against average and an 846 save percentage. Did not look good there. So again, goalies need more development, right? But he's a 2nd-round pick. He's only 22 years old, so let him continue to develop. And then in this past draft, in 2023, they used a early second round pick, 35th overall, to draft Adam Gajan, and he is in the NCAA playing for the University of Minnesota Duluth. 17 games played. Again, not looking great. NCAA is a little harder. Again, these are not equivalents. Goalies take a long time to develop, but he's got an 889 save percentage and a 3.25 goals against average. So you have to consider that this gives him a little bit more of a guarantee. Again, not a full guarantee, but again, a guy that was well developed. And we know that the Florida Panthers do a good job of picking goalies because they traded for Bobrovsky, and he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, he's hot and cold, right? But he won the Stanley Cup last year. He played out of his mind, right? This is the same team that drafted Devin Levi and ended up sending him over to Buffalo in the trade for, who was it again? I can't remember offhand, but they found Devin Levi, who is absolutely going to be a starter in this league. They also drafted Spencer Knight, drafted 1st overall, right? So the Florida Panthers know how to develop goalies. By the way, do you know who's leading their goalie development? Roberto Luongo, famous for Florida Panthers and famous for the Vancouver Canucks. So you can see there's a guy who is a good veteran player who is leading that charge. And so you absolutely have to trust that Roberto Luongo might know what he's doing, right? So tonight I think is a great pickup. And let's just jump into that 1st-round pick, right? We talked about this a little bit earlier. That 1st-round pick, either the 24 or 26 over 2026 or 2027 1st-round pick, they're probably going to be using this to flip for a player, right? This may be a guy where they're looking to flip for it's just an example, a Dylan Cousins, right? Let's say, because he's a center. It's a good young player who maybe needs to change of scenery. This is where you use a 1st-round pick like this to move off and get a Dylan Cousins, right? A guy who's locked up for $7 million for 7 years, or on a $7 million 7-year contract. And you can, and then they can flip for that, right? Now, I don't think Buffalo's going to do that because Buffalo's also trying to get good now, right? So they want a player for a player in this case, right? But maybe you trade, let's say San Jose wants to move up to Toffoli, right? Because Toffoli's looking good over there, good veteran. You can send the 1st-round pick because San Jose is going to be bad for quite a while, right? Anaheim, maybe that in that deal, right? So there's a lot of different things you can do with this 1st-round pick. If you want to either use it to draft a guy, I don't know if I'd suggest that just because it's going to be a late round pick. You just get a guy who's actually good right now. Because think about this in 2026, 2027, whenever the first round pick is, who's going to be bad then, right? It might be Pittsburgh. It might be a Boston Bruins, right? Washington Capitals are doing really well right now, but maybe they fall off after they win the Stanley Cup, right? And eventually Ovechkin passes Gretzky's goals. So there's so many teams you don't know. It's going to be a couple of years, right? But in like 1 or 2 years, you don't know which teams are going to start to fall off. Islanders are not looking good. They may need to go into a rebuild as well. St. Louis Blues are currently in the middle of a rebuild as well, right? Looking to flip some of their players. Calgary's doing a bit of a retool as well. So you see there's these moves that can be happening. So this is a great asset they can use. They can flip later. And so this is a huge win, I think, for both teams. I think, and to me, like, again, I think the biggest sticking point that I don't necessarily love is the $2.5 million a year that you're retaining, right? It is $12 million. To give you an idea, just to give you a quick idea, for someone to take on $2.5 million for 1 year, let's say you were to move off a guy who's making $2.5 million a year, and this is my last point, and then I'll end the video. But for $2.5 million for 1 year of salary, it would cost you a third round pick to move that player over. Let's say Jake Wallman, right? Like, Jake Wallman to cost a second round pick to move $3.6 million per year off to San Jose. It would cost $2.5 million to cost you about a third round pick to take on that salary for a whole year. That's a third round pick next year, the year after, the year after, the year after, the year after. That's 5 third round picks, right? And Chicago's able to get a first round pick out of this. Again, $2.5 million for when the salary's been jumping up a ton is not a huge deal. And mind you, Chicago has a ton of cap space. Currently, they have $21 million in cap space right now. Even the projected cap space for the rest, they have deadline cap space. They have $23 million they can take on. So just to give you an idea, like, this is huge. And now we look at what Chicago has for the next couple of years. They have 3 first-round draft picks for the next 3 years, and they have 7 second-round draft picks for the next 3 years. Holy smokes, these guys they have so many assets, right? And they can use, again, similar to the first round pick. They're going to be either getting 26 or 27. They can use these to flip for guys now, right? So you want to flip for a guy who's popping off, you can do that right now. So anyways, let me know what your thoughts are. Hit like, subscribe. I appreciate you staying on, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.